Hey friend, welcome back to Bible Tract Echoes. I'm Mike McCurry, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in once again today. I'm going to ask you if you would to go to the book of Psalms, Psalms 1. This is the end of a 2-week series. This is actually the 10th and final broadcast in this series for now. Psalm 1, only 6 verses there. I'll let you read them if you'd like to. But I'm going to give you a quick explanation for an illustration I'm going to use in just a moment. I refer to, what you're going to hear in just a moment is me preaching a message that I preached at my home church. This is the last part of the series, a 3-part series I did in Psalms 1. And earlier in the series, I referred to flamingos and how they get their unique pink coloring. If you want to understand, it's from some shrimp or some sort of watery creature, biting creature that they eat, and it turns them pink. But from what I understand, if they don't eat this pink, this crustacean or whatever it may be that causes them to turn pink, then they get a little more drab. They get gray. I'm going to reference that here in just a moment. What you're going to hear is a recording of me preaching this message. I preached at my home church, and it was a blessing to me. It's one of those things where sometimes you have a finger pointed out, and there are 3 pointed back at the speaker. You know, you ever been there before? Oftentimes, the best messages I preach are the ones that hit me between the eyes the hardest. And so I thought it might be a blessing to share on the radio as well this week. And we're going to conclude. It stretches all the way back to last week. I'm going to ask you to tune your hearts and minds. If you missed the previous broadcasts, listen today, but then you can listen on demand. Bible Tract Echoes. Just search Bible Tract Echoes on your favorite podcast player or on YouTube, and you can find it there. Here's the question today. Are you known by God? Listen in. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. But look at verse number 6. For the Lord knoweth, because the ungodly cannot stand, and sinners will not be in the congregation of the righteous, for the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous. He can figure out, we can put on our pink flamingo coats and fool everybody else, but the Lord knows, for the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. That first phrase, for the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous. The Lord, while the ungodly face rejection, the Lord has respect for the righteous. To be known by God, 2 Timothy 2:19, the Lord knoweth them that are his. I was talking to a man yesterday. I think, Noah, you were with me when we knocked on his door. A gentleman, I was considering Brother Noah for about, 3-5 minutes. I was trying to figure out, is this guy worth my time? Someone knows, if you've been there before, like, he's talking in circles and he's on all kinds of weird doctrine stuff. And we're going to get to the next door. But he finally came up for air, and I got a chance to get into the gospel a little bit. And so we were talking, and it turned into a good conversation. And we were talking, and it seemed like he didn't quite understand baptism, didn't quite understand, he certainly didn't seem to understand eternal security. I asked him, he said he went to a Baptist church within about 30 miles of here, attends once a month or so. I don't know how often you can go to church and to a Baptist church that has that name and be as wild on his doctrine as he might have been. It's not the First Baptist Church of Dwight, I guarantee that. But as he talked, I said, so would you say that you know? It's not for me to decide. It's up to God. Well, yeah, he said, whosoever will, have you accepted him or not? I was almost getting a little frustrated with him. Hopefully I hid that reasonably well, Noah. But some of the banal things he was just throwing out there, I said, hold on. The illustration I like to use is, if I'm walking through a Walmart parking lot, we have to drive a whole 30 minutes to get there. In Navajo land, they have to drive 100 miles to get there. So we got things good here in Dwight. But if I'm walking through a Walmart parking lot with my girls, I don't stick my finger out for them to grab a hold of. Because if some weirdo comes up, tries to grab them, they're 6 or 8. They don't, not a very strong grip. Or if they see something shiny over there and they want to run over, they can let go anytime they want to. But God said, no man can pluck you out of my hand. So I don't give them my finger, I wrap my hand, much larger, much stronger. Now, relative to God, I'm nothing, but I wrap my hand because they both can try to take off like a team of wild horses, and they're not going anywhere that I don't want them to go. And this gentleman did not seem to understand that. But you realize the Lord knoweth them that are his. And the Bible says in the book of John, chapter 10, in verse 27, my sheep hear my voice. And later on it says, and I know them. The Lord respects the righteous. He knows the righteous. Verse 6, for the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but, and as we conclude, the way of the ungodly shall perish. The way of the ungodly, it leads to ruin. Proverbs 14:12, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. See, what I found, what we want, I've been talking about you are what you eat and all of that. What we want is not a flamingo transformation. We want a caterpillar transformation. We want to gorge ourselves on God. We want to give him like this brief amount of time, gorge ourselves, and then we think we're just going to curl up, and then out comes this beautiful butterfly, and you're just going to be beautiful, and everything's going to be wonderful, rose-colored glasses for the rest of your days. Friend, every single, what did Paul say? You want the caterpillar? You want the caterpillar? I die daily. No. You're going to have to look yourself in the eye, as I do me. One finger pointing out, three pointing back. And you're going to have to look at yourself and go, you're looking a little gray. Not enough shrimp in your diet. You're not really blending in with the other flamingos. How can that Christian, how can they handle, how can I talk to a Pastor Mitch Estep? This was a couple days. This would have been, 5 days. 5 days I talked to him before she woke up and said, I don't think I have cancer anymore. 5 days where I said, brother, he said, how you doing? He said, well, people keep asking me, are you guys overwhelmed? Are you overcome? He said, no. God's mercies are new every morning. Got enough, just like the widow of Zarephath. God didn't back up the Brinks truck or the FedEx truck with barrels of meal and barrels of oil and sacks of meal. No, she woke up every day and just had enough for that day. If a man like that can see his daughter-in-law dealing with something like that, his son, they've been married for less than a year. They're coming up on a year here in August, I think. If he can deal with that, and then all the crushing weight, the weights of a pastor, all that in addition to this going on, and he can say, we're not overwhelmed. Oh, death, where is your sting? Grave, where is your victory? You lost a long time ago, devil. We're just waiting for the final bell. The referee's just doing the 10 count, and maybe, just maybe, Jesus wants to see how well we're going to do over the next little while here, and maybe he's going to give us, and who knows who the next president's going to be. I don't know, but I can tell you, you don't need to be overwhelmed. If you get nothing else out of this message, eat more shrimp. That's what you need, all right? Look more like a flamingo. No, in all seriousness, what's your diet, though? If you wake up tomorrow morning feeling a little gray, a little drab, a little dreary, maybe we go back to, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. I don't imagine the Estep family was reading less scripture a few weeks ago than they were 2 months prior before she got that diagnosis. Why do we need to wait? I'm not saying they did, but why do we need to wait till we get that terrible news from the doctor before we sink? I'm talking to myself here. Why do we need to wait until we sink our nose into this book? He's known by what he doesn't do. Blessed is the man that does not. He's known by what he delights in. He's known by what he develops into. But there are also some dangers to beware of. The ungodly are not so. I can't put a thermometer under your tongue and tell you, their fruits, by their fruits you shall know them. And God's given our pastor great discernment. At the same time, you can fool anybody, but you can't fool God. So I wonder this evening, as you look at this first psalm, could you look at your life, the past week even, and say, oh, I'm blessed? Or would you say, not so? We need a reset. Going into another week, not so. But this week's going to be different. This week's going to be blessed. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Friend, I wonder today, are you known by God? Verse number 6 of Psalms 1, for the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. If you were to die today, if you were to enter eternity, are you for sure where you'd go? You know, the Bible tells us there are only 4 simple things you must understand that will provoke a decision for us to be accepted into God's family. There's no good works we can do. It's by grace through faith, this gift of God. But you must understand that we are all sinners. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. Yes, the ungodly shall perish. That sounds like terrible news. That's the second thing. Not only that we're sinners, but number 2, we have to go to a place in eternity separated from God, a place that we call hell, because of our ungodliness, because of our wickedness. But then the good news starts. Jesus Christ paid the penalty for us so that we could, as verses 2 and 3 talk about, he shall be like a tree. The godly man shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. How does that happen? Not because of a geographical location, but because of being grafted into the family of God. Yes, we're all sinners. Yes, there's a penalty for our sin, but Jesus Christ paid the penalty for us. And that prompts the 4th thing, which is also a decision. We must accept the free gift of salvation. I can't force you to be saved. Only you can make that decision. Maybe you have questions about that today. Maybe you'd like to pray and ask God to save you. Either way, would you mind reaching out to me? I'd love to hear from you. Text me at 309-316-7240. If you have questions or if you want to make that decision today, text me at 309-316-7240. Thank you for tuning all this week and last to this series from the book of Psalms and Psalms 1. My prayer, as always, is that you have a great day for God's glory, and my prayer is that you are known by God. God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to Bible Tract Echoes, the radio ministry of Bible Tracts Incorporated. Want to see our gospel tracts and other resources? Visit us online at BibleTractsInc.org. That's BibleTractsInc.org. Or follow us on social media to learn how you can partner with this ministry. Thanks again for listening. May the Lord richly bless you as you live for Him.